Like a lot of people right now, as we're just at 9:01, I'm waiting for the supposed launch of the Nikon Zf. So here I found the first evidence that it's real. Just 1 minute ago, Rishi of Rishi Talks has just released his video. So I'm going to take a break here, and I'm going to get caught up. I'm going to watch some videos, and then I'll come back and I'll give my views. Okay, so first one I'm going to watch here is by my buddy Matt Irwin, Down Under. I'm sure he's done a wonderful job with it, so I'm going to watch this and I'll get back to you in a minute. Hi, Ray here. I'm back with my Nikon FM, circa 1977. And so I've watched a couple of videos, looked around, seen some real pictures, videos, and some great reviews, especially, well, in particular, by my good friend Down Under, Matt Irwin, and also by Rishi from Rishi Talks. And so now I know a little bit more. The first thing, it's a beautiful camera. And if you've seen it, I think you'll agree. It really is a beautiful looking camera. And I'd said in at least one other video that I was hoping for a full frame retro camera, but with a build quality that was something approaching this old Nikon FM, which is, as I've said a few times, it's built like a tank, and I beat mine up in, I owned about 4 of them altogether. First an FM, then a couple of 2 or 3 FM2s. Back to the ZF, which is what we're talking about. So we now know that it's a 24 megapixel camera, backlit CMOS sensor. From what I can understand, it's probably the same sensor that was in the Z6 II, but there seems to be some kind of special sauce in there, maybe from the X-Speed 7. It's not a shutterless camera per se, although it has an electronic shutter, just like the Nikon Z6, Z7, Z7 II, Z6 II. So no sensor shield, again, like those previous cameras, but no sensor shield like the Z9 and the Z8. And it has a touch function on the rear screen. Now that's kind of interesting, and you can program that. Whether you want that for centralizing your focus or moving your focus around, or whatever you want to program that to. That's kind of interesting. 8-stop stabilization. That is amazing. That's really going to come in handy because, well, let's just jump to video here. This is going to be a great vlogging camera. Now, I've never been a real big fan of a flippy screen, but this has a flippy screen, and I can see how that would come in handy. I'm not exactly sure if that moves in any other direction. It probably does. It probably does articulate this way, back and forth. So the Z30, that was touted as a great vlogging camera, and obviously small and lightweight, APS-C. But as a fan of full frame, I think this one really fits the bill for me. You get all the focus areas of like the Z9 and the Z8, including 3D. So that's awesome. And also the tracking for such things as human face, animals, vehicles, and so on and so forth. Has all that stuff. Excellent. The battery is the as I surmised in my little rumor video, that it's the ENEL15C battery, like is used in the Z8 and the Z6 II and Z7 II. That's excellent. And that, I would imagine that that battery would be pretty long lasting. I'm getting really quite good performance out of it in my Z8. So I'm happy to see that. Let's just jump to, the cards. So there is 2 cards. That means SD and micro SD. Now, I'm not a huge fan of micro SD. Maybe I'm fumble fingers, but I always drop them. But, you know, when I think about it, that SD card, micro SD card, I think you just pop one of those in there, and, you know, that's the backup if you need it, and it pretty much stays there. To be quite truthful, I very rarely use the second card slot in any of my cameras. I usually just have it set to overflow, but, you know, if you wanted to use it for backup, in certain situations, you've got that micro SD card there. And I happen to have 1 or 2 kicking around. pixel shift up to, I think, 96 megapixels. So if you're not familiar with pixel shift, and I've actually not used it either, I think that was pioneered by the likes of Sony and Olympus. Anyway, pixel shift is basically you get to combine a whole bunch of pictures, and the ZF does that in camera, and then you have to combine them in post. So, but what it does is it combines, I think this is up to 16 or maybe even 32 photos. You combine those in post for up to a 96 megapixel image. Of course, that has to be a stationary subject, so you're going to want to use a tripod. I think this would be the ultimate travel camera. And I must say I'm very, very tempted. First of all, cosmetically, because it really is a beautiful looking camera. And it appears that there's going to be all those wonderful colors as there was with the ZFC. So yeah, it's a beautiful looking camera. They've really done a wonderful, wonderful job on it. The other thing that I noticed from Rishi's video is that the top dials on this camera, they're brass. And Rishi actually went to the trouble of sanding his. I don't think I'll do that. I'll tell you a story about my original Nikon FM. This area here on my first FM that saw so many mountaineering expeditions and so on, that all the paint was worn off of here. And I used pink nail polish to protect the underlying metal. It was quite interesting. People often commented on it. So no, if I was to buy one of these, I think I'd just wait until the brass naturally wore. Let's just talk about prices. So $1,999, $1,999 US. So in Canada, it comes in at $2,699. So that's not chump change, but it is about the price of the original Z6. So you can also get a package with that wonderful 40mm SE kit. That comes in at just over $3,000 Canadian, $3,029. With the 24 to 70 kit, then you're up at almost $3,500, $3,499. So I don't think I'll be jumping on that right away. Right now, the camera's been released with this black body, and I had two of the Nikon FM2 black bodies. Beautiful looking camera, and I'd be very tempted. However, I do like the idea of the different skin colors. And so let's get to those video specs. 4K, 60p, and also 10-bit H.265, HEVC video, SDR, HLG, and N-Log internally. So now remember, when it came to the Nikon Z6, we had to buy an external recorder, something like the Atomos Ninja 5, which I did do. Now, we can record 10-bit log internally with the Nikon Zf. That is excellent, and as I said, perfect vlogging camera, but you can record some very nice, high-quality spec video. Just 4K, but still. The other thing, now I'm not 100% sure if you can do this with video as well as stills, but we have this interesting little switch that we can switch to black and white mode. Now those retro top dials, but we have all kinds of dials on the top. So dials for exposure compensation. We have a dial, of course, for ISO and shutter speed. Now, one of the things that I criticized about another camera that shall remain nameless, the one thing that I didn't like was that you could only, like on these original film cameras, once you set your ISO, because you only had, like here right now, I've got Ektar 100. So my ISO is set to 100. Well, it's completely different with digital cameras. And one of the great things about being able to change your ISO is that you now have all of your exposure triangle available to change. So I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think I'm taking from Rishi's video that you can in fact use, I think is there a front dial and a rear dial? I can't remember, but that you can still change your settings with those dials. The other thing that I noticed is that the dials are pretty easy to move. You press down a little button. It's very similar to this. It's designed after this, but you press down on the button and the ISO, for instance, which is the main one that I'm interested in, seems very easy to change. So again, I'd really like to have one in my hands, and I think I'll wait until they actually are available in the shops before I make my decision. Absolutely, from the photos and the videos that I've seen, the Nikon Zf looks like a beautifully designed, well-made, looks pretty rugged. Definitely, yeah. Ergonomically, I should mention that ergonomically, it seems like it's got a little grip there. And I can see from Matt Irwin's video that there's also a small rig edition made that gives it a little bit more grip. I mean, one of the things about these retro cameras, ergonomically, you know, we've been spoiled now by these nice gripped cameras. And I rarely use a strap, and that grip is really nice to make sure that you've got a good grip on it. And so there's a little built-in grip initially built into the ZF camera. That looks pretty nice, gives you a little bit of grip. And as I say, there's also, it appears, this small rig edition that gives you a bit more of a grip. And also, you know, adds a little bit of protection on the camera as a whole. I haven't seen the battery, can't really see the battery door yet. I hope that that's better than on the ZF. I wasn't really impressed by the battery door on the ZF. Seemed a little plasticky. So I hope they've improved on that. At least made it as rugged as, say, the Z6, Z7, Z8. Obviously, the Z9, completely different story there. Anyway, my overall impression is I need it. No, I don't actually need it, but I definitely want it. When it comes to, of course, all the existing full-frame lenses that I own, those are going to work wonderfully. And I think if you put on something like, well, I could actually even adapt this old E-series 50mm 1.8. That would look pretty cool on it, huh? Yeah. Yeah. So, very tempting. We'll see. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. There's nothing that hasn't been said in more detail and illustrated in more detail, as I say, in videos like Rishi's and Matt's. So I will link those below. But if you got anything out of this, please do give it the old thumbs up. And if this is your first visit here, please do consider subscribing. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. In the meantime, take care, cheers, and we'll see you in the next one.